Hello, Andrew Thompson with you live on CPAC. We are about to get more reaction from Conservatives to the Finance Minister's committee testimony yesterday, including the Conservative call for Bill Morneau's resignation. Let's go live to Parliament Hill.
Pierre Poilievre, Shadow Minister for Finance, and MP Michael Barrett, Shadow Minister for Ethics. I was there at Finance Committee yesterday when Bill Morneau appeared, and I have to say that what came out of yesterday's committee is shocking. We knew going into yesterday that the finance minister broke the law when he announced a $3 million grant to We, an organization that employed his daughter. And just by coincidence, that grant was announced the very month she was hired by the We organization. We knew that the finance minister broke the law when he failed to recuse himself and indeed participated in the decision to award the We organization a nearly $1 billion agreement. But after yesterday, it gets a whole lot worse. We learned yesterday that the finance minister and his family benefited from and accepted more than $41,000 in travel-related expenses by the We organization to exotic destinations, including Kenya and Ecuador. And guess what? Just by coincidence, on the very day that the finance minister was to appear before our committee, he suddenly discovered that there were these $41,000 in expenses, and just by coincidence, he paid it back yesterday, the very day that he was appearing before our committee. The seriousness of what the finance minister admitted to yesterday should not be understated. The finance minister broke the law. And let me, in that regard, draw your attention to several sections of the Conflict of Interest Act. Section 11 of the Conflict of Interest Act states that, and I'm quoting, "No public office holder or member of his or her family shall accept any gift or other advantage that might reasonably be seen to have been given to influence the public office holder." Bill Morneau did that when he accepted $41,000 in free travel by the We organization, an organization that he handed out millions of dollars in grants to, and nearly a $1 billion agreement. Section 12 of the Conflict of Interest Act states, "No minister of the Crown, no member of his or her family shall accept travel on non-commercial chartered or private aircraft for any purpose." Now, we don't know if Bill Morneau or his family, when they went to Ecuador or Kenya, traveled by way of private aircraft. But what we do know is that the $41,000 in unpaid hidden expenses were relating to so-called programming costs, and we know that most of We's programs are in rural and remote areas. And so therefore, it begs the question whether or not the finance minister and his family contravened Section 12 of the Conflict of Interest Act. Now, even if somehow traveling on the dime of We in the amount of $41,000 somehow passes muster, there's another section of the Conflict of Interest Act that's problematic from the standpoint of Bill Morneau, and that is Section 23 of the Conflict of Interest Act. And that section states, quote, if the total value of all gifts or other advantages accepted exceeds $200 from any one source, the reporting public officeholder shall disclose the gifts or other advantages to the Ethics Commissioner within 30 days after the day on which the value exceeds $200. There is absolutely no record that Bill Morneau disclosed those $41,000 in expenses. Indeed, he admitted that he did not disclose them because he claims he only discovered them just in the last few days and paid the money back just yesterday. And so what we have here is a finance minister who is a repeat offender under the Conflict of Interest Act. This is the same finance minister who was found to have breached the Conflict of Interest Act when he failed to disclose his luxurious French villa. And we now have a finance minister who has breached multiple sections of the Conflict of Interest Act relating to his failure to recuse himself in the sum of hundreds of millions of dollars, nearly $1 billion of money that went to an organization that traveled him and his family around the world, promoted his daughter's book, and employed his daughter. And so it's time that the Minister of Finance do the only thing that is left to do, and that is resign as minister. Now, I've got to say that in the testimony of the finance minister yesterday, he claimed it was all a mistake. It was just, he had all the right intentions, but somehow he just didn't realize that $41,000 in travel, food, and accommodation expenses had gone unpaid for. And that if he had only known, he would have never allowed that to happen. Now, it's interesting that the finance minister would claim that. I mean, it's quite absurd. I mean, most Canadians would certainly know if they suddenly had received $41,000 in unpaid expenses. Indeed, it's more than many Canadians earn in an entire year. But the statement of we that was issued yesterday contradicts what the minister said, that it was all a misunderstanding, that it was all a mistake. Indeed, to sum up the statement of we, and I'm quoting from the statement that was issued from we, it states, quote, on a complementary basis, We Charity invites current and potential major funders. This has been a successful practice. After their trips, donors have provided tens of millions of dollars, closed quote. So there you have it. This was a free trip. We never provided Mr. Morneau with an invoice. Mr. Morneau never sought or inquired to have an invoice, to have those expenses paid, because it was just that. It was a free trip. And in return, we expected to get paid. And boy, did they get paid handsomely, to the tune of nearly $1 billion in hard-earned taxpayers' dollars. Now, my colleagues, MPs Poilievre, Barrett, and I wrote to the Ethics Commissioner a few weeks ago to call on the Ethics Commissioner to investigate Bill Morneau's failure to recuse himself with respect to awarding nearly $1 billion in taxpayers' money to we. And the Ethics Commissioner has launched an investigation, but in light of yesterday's shocking testimony from the minister, we're now calling on the Ethics Commissioner to undertake a further investigation. And with that, I will turn the floor over to my colleague, Michael Barrett.